I'd like for you to take a moment to imagine your most ideal life, the best possible scenario you can envision for yourself. You're in your physical prime, you have a network of people who love and respect you, you've achieved great things, you've picked up major momentum, and there's no telling where your limits lie. That is, if they even exist. Today you flourish, and tomorrow you reign supreme. And I'd reckon most people would find this quite nice, this routine of soaring far past all of your dreams, but never hitting any sort of ceiling. But let's say, though, that you do reach this height, you get comfortable in your splendor, you enjoy all the small things that make life beautiful, but then it's all taken away from you in a single instant. You're plucked from your own utopia and dropped in a world that has no place for you anymore. Those who used to regard you with admiration now look down upon you with sorrowful pity. The love of your life betrays you in your weakened state, and your best friend exploits you to further his career. You're trapped in your own body, and your trophy rack has become nothing more than a grim reminder of what once was. Just imagine the resentment that would burn inside of you as this world that once looked to you for inspiration turns coat and drags you down far lower than your average layman could quite comprehend. Imagine spending your every waking moment crumbling under the weight of that anger festering within you, grappling with the fierce rage that you can never act upon. This is the story of Alan Mann, a quadriplegic athlete who lost everything after an accident and struggles to maintain his inhibitions, lest the ape of the night bring his wicked primal urges to life. This is the tale of a humbled man clinging desperately to his dwindling humanity as the world attempts to make a monster out of him. This is Monkey Shines. Hello and welcome back to Bazoodle Bites. Today we're going to give the supple teat of the Sandman a well-earned break and look towards this mesmerizing monkey movie for nourishment instead. I warn you though, folks, this is no Dunstan Checks In. Monkey Shines is a much more grim, somber tale of the most twisted parts of humankind, and it asks us what separates the civilized from the animalistic. Yeah, Jason Alexander had to sit this one out. Monkey Shines was originally released in the form of a British psychological horror novel in 1983, written by one Michael Stewart. One of the main differences between the book and the movie is that the book is set in England and the movie is set in Pittsburgh, because the director likes that place. Oh yeah, this movie was directed by George A. Romero. You know, the guy that did the Night of the Living Dead movies, some of the most influential horror films of all time. He pretty much invented the modern idea of zombies, earning himself the title of Godfather of the Dead. Holy hell, that is one badass name. And to think it all started with the tonsillectomy episode of Mr. Rogers. Damn. Thing is though, he doesn't seem to have any monkey-related monikers. People love him for his zombie movies, but nobody acknowledges the gripping monkey tale he brought to the silver screen. And it seems to have some sort of small cult following nowadays, but it totally ate shit at the box office in 1988. It had a budget of $7 million, but only brought in $5.3. Unfortunately, it seems Mr. Romero gave up on the monkey genre after that. Its reviews remain mixed to this day, and it doesn't have anything to show for it, aside from the Malcolm in the Middle episode.
Emergency.
This is Craig Feldspar. You've got to help me. My monkey butler is trying to kill me. I don't know how much time I have.
So what gives? Is Monkey Shines the single dingleberry in the great bowl of delicious Hershey's Kisses that is George Romero's filmography? The hidden turd at the bottom of your leftover Cocoa Puff milk? The lone poo stain on a beauteous brown leather jacket? Well, no. It's actually a very profound, thought-provoking story. It's filled to the brim with high emotions, romance, dark humor, thrills, chills, and funky monkey business. Now let's get into that.
Oh, I got 5,000 years of civilized behavior bred into me. Well, what if I wasn't civilized anymore? What if I was an animal? Free to follow my instincts. That's what the devil is, Jeff. It's instinct. Animal instinct. Lives in us all. Lives by its own set of laws.
I would first like to mention the disclaimer the movie opens with. It tells us two major things. First, monkeys actually are trained to help disabled people by Boston University. This is an actual thing that happens in real life. Second, this movie uses real monkeys, and they were all treated very humanely. That's right, our shining monkey actually exists, named Boo. Our Boo here actually required multiple monkey doubles during the filming too, which made the filming process way more complicated than it would have been otherwise. It resulted in way more footage than Romero was used to, which really soured his taste of big budget productions. He had to go through an absurd amount of film during editing, and the studio constantly had him alter and rework things. In fact, the entire ending of the movie was changed because the studio didn't like the darker tone the book ends with. So basically, his creative vision was partially limited, the workload was a lot larger, and as we now know, it didn't pay off in the box office either. It makes sense that he decided to return to independent films for a few years. Apparently, the monkey they used was a male, and males are more aggressive than the females of the species. I'm sure that was a big pain in the ass to deal with too, but hey, boys will be boys. I don't know why they put themselves through that when the character of Ella is female, but I guess I gotta respect the dedication. They could have just taken the easy way out and put Frank Welker in a monkey suit. It would save them time with the dubbing and all of that. Oh right, Frank Welker is the owner of the very talented set of vocal cords we hear from Ella in this movie. Now he's got quite the resume, lending his voice to nearly everything under the sun, perhaps most notably being Goomba. So now that I've covered some of the film's troubled production, it's time I delve into the product that spawned from their sorrowful struggles. To put it very simply, Monkey Shines is the story of Alan Mann, someone who has accomplished many great things in his life and puts a lot of effort into staying in shape. One day, during his morning run, he's hit by a truck and becomes paralyzed. His friend Jeffrey experiments on animals for a living and finds a specialist, Melanie, to set Alan up with Ella, a monkey who was injected with human brain tissue. Alan forms a close bond with both Melanie and Ella, until the latter causes his most wicked desires to become reality. He sports fangs and lashes out at people when she's nearby. And when he sleeps, Ella carries out vicious, violent vengeance on those who have wronged him. Well, that's all you need to know about the plot for now. The main character of this story represents the ideal man, the absolute best of humanity. That's clearly spelled out in the first 5 minutes of this film. Now don't worry, I'm not gonna sit here and ruin the whole plot scene by scene. There's no possible way I could describe this movie in a way that would be more enjoyable than simply watching it for yourself. That being said, let's discuss our main man, spelled with 2 N's. When we first see Alan, he is waking up on a bright early morning in bed with his significant other. We see their naked bodies enjoying absolute serenity. They are happy. They are intimate. We can immediately understand this without the need for any dialogue. He gently covers her up with a blanket and proceeds to leap out of bed to start his morning exercise. We see him do stretches on the floor, still totally nude, showing off his Olympian physique. Then he goes out for a morning run. The neighbors greet him kindly. We see beautiful scenery as the amazing soundtrack continues painting the picture of Alan's perfect life. Suddenly, it abruptly comes to a crashing halt as a dog lunges at him, causing him to get hit by a passing truck. Now, in just under 4 minutes, the movie has given us a lot of information about these characters. Alan has a loving relationship, he's respected by his community, and he cares a great deal about his physical well-being. He dedicates a lot of effort to maintaining his good health, going as far as to bring a backpack full of bricks on his morning run. Now, we don't know his name quite yet, but you can trust me, it's Alan Mann. Alan spelled with 2 L's, and Mann with 2 N's. Now this is very important to the character. You see, Alan is meant to represent a man at the top of his game. His body is in peak physical condition, he has many great achievements, and everyone believes in him. He is not simply an average Joe, but rather the upper echelon of what humans can become. When I say the name Alan, you probably imagine it spelled A-L-A-N. That seems to be the most common spelling based on a couple of Google searches at least. Additionally, when I say the word man, you probably think of the typical spelling, M-A-N. Well, Alan is no simple man. He has extra letters in his name because he was given extra blessings in his life. He is, to put it simply, exceptional. After this accident, though, we see what happens to a man who is grounded after abruptly having his wings clipped. After he goes through surgery, the camera pans across his room, showing pictures of his great achievements juxtaposed against his get-well-soon cards. He's left laying in bed, his happy, clean-shaven face replaced with a bearded look of despair. He has had everything taken from him in an instant, and he's reduced to a ghost of his former self. This man, who had so much more going for him than your average guy that he needed extra letters to convey it, has been crippled in a freak accident. And as far as we know, it was all caused by a dog. An animal. Keep that in mind because it ties back to our major theme. The blurred lines between humanity and the animalistic. So with our human protagonist introduced, let's now delve into the animal one. The main monkey of this movie is of course named Ella. And yes, this name also holds important meaning. It's used in many languages, but the most common meaning of the name is other or foreign. This definitely checks out for poor Ella, who doesn't fit in at all with the other monkeys. She didn't grow up in a monkey's natural habitat, but instead she was caged, experimented on, and injected with human brain tissue, which drastically alters her personality. But where else could she fit in, though? She's still very clearly not human. And she uses that to commit crimes that most humans would have trouble getting away with. Her main conflict revolves around her relationship with Alan and the way her monkeyhood keeps separating the two. She is an animal who has been tainted by the human mind, and she acts savagely because of these new human feelings. She is completely foreign to both groups, and stands firmly in the middle. This is what makes the film so great. See, people tend to view animals as wild, savage, untamed beasts. The ones who aren't seen that way are either domesticated by mankind or too small and weak to pose a threat to us. Ella, again, falls into both groups. She's a cute little monkey who gives the sweetest little kisses, but when she snaps and starts killing people, well, that's just her savage side coming out, right? Well, not exactly. You see, Ella becomes a monster after being injected with human brains and bonding with Alan. Her actions, which bring the horror element to this movie, are the human part. That is why she is othered, foreign to both man and ape. That is why she is Ella. Oh, and her name also means the Shining One in Old Greek. She truly is the monkey shines. So now we have our shining ape and our downtrodden man, who she is very much in love with. She loves him so much that she willingly carries out his every wicked, wrathful wish. Now, the anger that dwells within Alan is not unjustified. He is, of course, as anyone would be, having trouble adjusting to his new life. He has lost much of his autonomy as well as his privacy. His girlfriend left him, his overbearing mother has moved in and begun to smother him, and with everything piling on the way it has been, he has even lost the will to live. His symbiotic relationship with Ella is what ends up restoring that.
I'm gonna do it, darling. I'm gonna go back to school. Put my mind to it, I ought to be able to tear up the track, right? What? You want to go to school, man?
But this was after he attempted suicide, though. It was all because of that damn dog. Stupid animal. Except wait, we find out halfway through the movie that this bitch actually wasn't the cause of all of this. Alan was not crippled by the accident. It wasn't the dog's fault, but rather his doctor, Dr. Wiseman. Alan actually had an abnormality in his spine, and the truck accident was mere coincidence. Dr. Wiseman treated him after the accident, and he just assumed the impact was what caused his paralysis. If he had been thorough and done his job, Alan's situation could have been avoided entirely. Instead, he did the bare minimum and ended up ruining his life. Well, this is another example of very clever naming of the characters. Calling him Dr. Wiseman is a hilarious way to shit-talk this pompous professional. So many people look up to these doctors as these wise men who know so much more than us and are so much more important, but still have the grace and kindness to hold our best interests at heart. Of course, in reality, this couldn't be further from the truth. You're probably thinking I'm being too harsh on poor Dr. Wiseman. He's only a human being. I can't possibly fault him so hard for missing such a thing, even if it is what he is paid large sums of money to do, right? Wrong! This guy fucking sucks. He ruined Alan's life, dismissed his suicide attempt by throwing tofranol at him without a second thought, and he's banging Alan's ex-girlfriend. That's why she left him. This sick bastard, this so-called wise man, has absolutely no remorse. My favorite part of the movie was the scene where Jeffrey pieces all of this together and calls him out in the most based rant put to film.
This isn't unusual. 6 out of 10 quadriplegics attempt suicide at some time or another.
And all you do is pump them full of tofranol, right?
Business manager to cashier's office. Jeffrey, what is
It's Alan. He tried to kill himself.
Wait a minute. You didn't know? Then what are you doing here?
She came to pick me up.
Well, I'll be damned. Well, how do we diagnose this one, Wiseman? Clinical asshole syndrome? Clinical rat? Clinical snake in the grass syndrome?
Come on, Jeffrey.
And you clinical cunt.
Absolutely perfect. More movies should preach this message, you know? Most people are willing to accept Big Pharma, but the problem goes much, much deeper than that. I say it's time we take these delicate geniuses down a peg. Shit, maybe George Costanza did belong in this movie.
When huge sums of money are involved, then the delicate genius can be disturbed.
Doctors are actually not all a bunch of benevolent geniuses who went into the field because they care for people so much and want to help them out. A lot of them become doctors because they know it's a job that lets them make money, or their parents were doctors, or they feel that a doctorate is the best way to get their mothers to love them, or they were bullied at school and are looking for ways to play God with us lowly mortals. Did you actually think they give a fuck about you? You can't even get a hold of them directly. You might get their assistant who doesn't know what they're talking about, if you're lucky. Why tease us with your contact information then? I mean, fine. So let's say you just go through the bullshit process of booking an appointment with them instead. After several months, you'll be seen and all will be well, right? Except wait, no, that isn't helpful either. They aren't interested in helping you. They're just so unbelievably busy and important that they have no choice but to skirt by doing the absolute bare minimum, and obviously charge you up the ass for it too. Oh yeah, they have time for that part.
Excuse me, Doc. The large lump in my head you told me to keep an eye on last time has quadrupled in size. Can you take a look at it or something?
Man, how dare you disturb my busy work schedule, you stupid-ass hypochondriac? I told you already, it's a pimple. Now get your peasant self out of my sight. Ah, Doc, I've been experiencing intense pain all over my body. My every waking moment feels akin to 1,000 knives being plunged into the center of my skull. My vision's hazy and my ears won't stop ringing. There's a loud crunch every time I take a step. Please help me. I didn't hear anything you just said, but it sounds to me like you got a case of the shakes. I'm prescribing you some Lexapro. But Doc, I already spent months on Lexapro and I didn't quite just take the pill, bucko. I know it's not what you asked for, nor is it relevant at all to whatever the fuck you just said to me, but I'll up your dose for you again. Now don't look back on past experiences or research its side effects. I do the research. I went to school for a really long time, so I can say with full confidence that you were in desperate need of drastic weight gain and a numb dickhead. Just trust me. I'm paid to know better than you, remember? Now that'll be $1 million, please.
Doc, I'm in total agony. I'm suffering rectal bleeding and my vomit is completely red. Help!
What, you never have a tummy ache before, you fucking idiot? It's just food poisoning. No. Anxiety. That's it. Anxiety. Here, I'll up your Lexapro dose. That'll do it. But let me know if any other issues arise, unless it's a weekend or the entire months of June and July, because I'll be on my much-needed vacation. The toodaloo. I'm gonna go fuck your wife in my new Tesla I bought thanks to your generous payments today. Tip, please.
Come on, when will it end with these slime bags? Oh, but I know what you're thinking. My doctor's really nice. There are some good ones out there. There's absolutely no reason not to blindly trust the US healthcare system. Maybe I'll purchase a nice bumper sticker that shows support for these poor, oppressed, good doctors. It's not like one bad apple spoils a bunch or anything. I feel so bad for them. They work hours on end to dismiss all of those different people's cries for help day in and day out, and all they have to show for it are ridiculous amounts of money. You know, I should call my doctor's intern and schedule an appointment just to say thank you. Oh, maybe I'll get in within the next 16 months. Well, guess what? You're wrong. It doesn't actually matter if your doctor's a really nice guy when you get to know him. It's a systemic issue, people. He's part of the problem too. Let's get that hashtag going, okay? All doctors are bastards. I want that on the front page of Twitter tomorrow, or you all have let me down.
I'm a head for that bag. I've seen some of these documentaries. I ain't feeling none of that. Hey, the game government don't get no one in the best sample. No, give them that 3D.
Well, fuck you. This movie takes place in the US, so it's topical. And Ella was cemented as my favorite cinematic monkey the moment she burned Wiseman and his clinical cunt to death. So, Monkey Shines. It's a good movie, you should watch it. There's definitely a lot more to it than meets the eye. Ella is one of the most complicated cinematic monkeys we've ever seen. She belongs to nobody. She's an outsider. She is the other. She is Ella. She's a character that simply cannot exist in real life. Well, how do I know that? Well, because they already tried to create her almost 100 years ago. I'd like to introduce you to the Winthrop-Kellogg experiment. In the 1930s, Winthrop Kellogg and his wife, two animal psychologists, brought a baby chimpanzee home to raise alongside their human son. See, Kellogg was very fascinated by the idea of abandoning a kid in the wilderness in order to see how they'd grow up in the wild without human companionship or the warmth of a loving mother. He really wanted to be the first to carry out this experiment, but then he learned that child abandonment was generally frowned upon, even among science fans. His solution? Simply reverse the entire thing. One day, he surprised his 10-month-old son Donald with his very own younger sister, a baby chimpanzee named Gua. He and his wife claimed to have raised them both exactly the same way, which in this case meant conducting cruel tests, tying them up, blindfolding them, and making both of them cry frequently for 9 months straight. It was meant to go on for 5 years, but they had to cut it short. The monkey actually surpassed Donald in a lot of these depraved tests, but she eventually hit her ceiling and could develop no further. At the end of the day, she was still a chimp, and nobody could change that. She wasn't going to learn how to speak, beat Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, or operate a forklift. She has limits as a monkey, and so she should have been in her monkey habitat where she belonged. Instead of altering her behavior to fit in with humans, this experiment simply deprived her of the socialization and nurture she needed. She should have been kicking it with her monkey friends, but instead she was subjected to abuse in a foreign environment. Maybe they could have taught her sign language or something, but that wouldn't have served her well in the end. When nobody else got you, your monkey homies got you. And without them, what else is there? You can take the monkey out of the jungle, but you can't take the jungle out of the monkey. What happened to Donald, though? Well, the reason the experiment was called off was actually because Donald had picked up his monkey's sister mannerisms, instead of the other way around. He was biting people, grunting, walking on all fours, and the experiment had the opposite of the desired results, and it didn't end well for either of the subjects. Gua died of pneumonia a year later, and Donald tragically took his own life in 1973. We can't say for sure whether this was related to the experiment in any way, as he isn't very well documented, but come on, there's no way this fucking helped anything. Now the main takeaway here is that socialization and a supportive environment is critical to your upbringing, whether you're an ape or a guy. The name of science is not a good enough justification for taking that away, and Monkey Shines illustrates that point clearly when you look at Ella's tragic character arc. We should just let monkeys do their own thing from now on, you know? They have a good system going. It's us humans who have trouble figuring out who we are. We're very prone to changing emotions, morals, ideals, and the very standards we hold ourselves to. Our laws change all the time. Our land frequently changes ownership. I mean, what about the fact that anyone even needs leadership? You think animals ostracize each other over their different interpretations of the good book? Or fly planes into each other's habitats? Or perhaps drone strike other countries? No. They say, I'm hungry, so I'm gonna eat that frog over there. You probably saw Alan lash out at people with his large fangs and thought, gosh, the monkey's taking over his mind. Well, no, that's all human stuff. Animals usually kill to eat, or in self-defense, or out of sick perversion, but not because their doctor botched their surgery, leaving them crippled, and then proceeded to bang their mate. No, you know what a monkey would normally do in Alan's situation? Get eaten by a hawk. Ella is simply the vessel through which Alan's subconscious, sinful desires are carried out. And the concept of sin is a very human thing. It's a religious thing. And I gotta say, religion plays a big part in this story as well. Throughout the movie, there are two characters who consistently reference a higher power. There's Jeffrey, who constantly takes the Lord's name in vain.
Jesus H. Christ.
He's a blasphemer, an inhumane animal scientist, he's sort of playing God in a way with these experiments, and he often references evolution. These are all things that are commonly viewed as the antithesis of Abrahamic beliefs specifically. The other character who references God is Alan's initial caretaker, Mary Ann.
Hi, I'm Melanie. You're Alan's nurse. God has given me that burden, yes.
She seems to genuinely believe in God, and she's pissed off that her efforts are being overshadowed by Ella, who is the product of a scientific experiment. Now, these are two characters who worship opposite things, and neither of them are painted in a positive light. Jeffrey, of course, experiments on animals, he doesn't tell Alan about it, he lies to everyone throughout the movie, and he chooses to try and capture Ella himself rather than call for help or maybe escape with Alan during the ending. He's willing to compromise his morals and rational thought because he's so dedicated to his unethical experiments. When you look at it that way, it's really a religion in and of itself. The other side of the coin, Mary Ann is just a huge bitch every time she's on screen, earning herself the title of Nurse Ratchet. She's envious and spiteful, and she does a horrible job as a caretaker. She nearly lets Alan's eyes get gouged out by her pet bird. Not very Christ-like, huh? It really falls in line with George Romero's own views on religion. In an interview I found on the website i4Film, he says, I'm afraid of people. I'm afraid of what people do to each other. Can you imagine the concept of genocide? How can somebody do that to somebody else? There must be at least two kinds of people. People who won't hurt a fly, and people who will happily blow away Palestinians because they're a different sect. Religion is the worst. He was raised as a Catholic, but it wasn't long before he became fed up with their hypocrisy. He later added, they were teaching that you can live beautifully all your life, but if you commit a sin, and then you die at that moment, you're going to hell. My grandmother died and everybody said, well, she's in heaven now. And I said, maybe not. My uncles and my father kicked my ass all over the street at the age of 7. That makes you re-examine things. And I mean, yeah, that does line up with what we see in the story of Monkey Shines.
Rewards for that little test. When do I get my reward?
When you die, you'll go to heaven, Mary Ann.
It's another example of something that's inherently human, which can often lead us to make human mistakes thanks to our humanly flawed motivations. And those human mistakes carry with them drastic consequences. All of the ugly, scary parts of this movie are very much human. They're just cleverly obscured by a spooky monkey mask. That is the great twist of Monkey Shines, and George Romero did a swell job depicting it in film. He's gone on record saying, I never wanted to just make zombie films, but I found out that I could easily talk about social issues by using that genre. And that's the biggest disappointment for me right now, because zombies have become something else. Well, George, I hope you can hear me in Heathen Heaven when I say you did a real bang-up job with this one. It may have been a pain in the ass to create, as well as severely underappreciated in its time, but Monkey Shines is a brilliant commentary on humanity itself. And the main point of that commentary is this: you don't gotta be an ape to go ape shit. Thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed your time with me, then I'd enjoy my time with your thumbs up and subscription. It's free of charge and puts a great big smile on my face. Take care.
Oh, you have a policy! The delicate genius has a policy!